All right, everybody, welcome back into another episode of Stadium Seat Sports. Kriv, man, this is our last episode of college football from a game perspective in the 2024 season. We're going to have some more college football videos post national championship, but in terms of talking about and previewing a game, which we love to do. This is the last one we get to do for this college football season. So a little bit of a bittersweet moment, I think, for both of us because we just love this sport so much. We love to talk about it as much as we can. Um, but really exciting game that we get to preview here. Obviously, we know what game that is, national championship game between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think it's going to be an absolutely epic game. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to you. I want to get your thoughts on this because, normally our kind of videos hit between about 30 to 40 minutes and we don't have any other games to talk about. Like we fully just get to focus on this game.
Yeah.
So we can get as in depth as you want. We can talk about the most obscure things from this game's perspective that you want. Like I want to hear your thoughts and then I'll touch on your points and I'll give you some of my own.
Yeah. So, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a very bittersweet thing because it is the end of a college football season.
Mhm.
Anyone who's a college football fan, we all wish it could go on forever, but also this playoff has been exciting. Obviously, there's been some blowouts mixed in there, but some great storylines, and two of those storylines, probably the biggest ones, of course, are the two teams
Yeah.
playing in this game.
Sure.
Marcus Freeman, wonderful story. Losing to NIU in week two, and then just ripping off wins, beating Indiana at home, beating Georgia, and then of course beating Penn State in their last game. It's been a great run for them. They just it's been an incredible run. They had no room for error after that loss, and they have not made any
Sure.
error. And
Yeah.
I'd say, and especially in the last two games, Penn State and Georgia, they made plays when it mattered the most. They
Mhm.
might not have been as crazy. I know they won, but they might not have been the best team on the field.
No, I think
So
they were the most physically dominant team, though, on the field in both of those games, at least in my opinion.
I think that to an
Maybe not
extent,
best team,
I think
but I think
intent.
physically
I
dominating.
think intensity and effort
Mhm.
wise, I think they just bring it. And
Sure.
I was gonna draw this comparison because he played for him, but this team feels like a Jim Tressel team.
Mhm. I think
They
it's a
had
good comparison.
Yeah, you have a solid quarterback with some physical skills that can run a little bit. Maybe not crazy upside with his arm, but he has that grittiness and toughness that you want at that position. And
Yeah.
they play that Jim Tressel brand. And
Can I ask you real quick, because you're touching on this subject? The Jim Tressel brand of football was conservative, I think, by choice. Maybe there were some limitations. Do you think it's the same for this Notre Dame team? It's conservative but methodical by choice or by limitations,
yeah,
by
so
way of Riley Leonard's arm?
I think the reason they call the plays they do is it's because of the personnel.
Mhm.
They don't have super high-end receivers. They don't have a super high-end quarterback, but
Mhm.
they have the right scheme for them, and they're coached incredibly well, and they're all bought in. And when I say they're like a Jim Tressel team, yes, offensively, you kind of see it with the run game,
Mhm.
but it's also the special teams. And
Sure.
Jim Tressel said, I think the quote is like the most important play in a game is the punt. And you can argue some of the biggest plays for Notre Dame have been punts or special
Yeah.
teams or kickoff returns. Like
Mhm.
it's been those plays that have made the difference for them in their bowl games. And honestly, you see that makeup, and it's very similar. So for me, that path for them was has been iconic. But they are living a brand of football, and they're fully bought in. On the other hand, I'd say Ohio State's fully bought in too. And they had that inflection point, of course, on November 30th.
Mhm.
They easily, as that article had with Jack Sawyer, they easily could have just closed up shop and quit. And he said they had two options. They could quit or be the best team in the nation. And
Yeah.
it sure feels like they chose best team in the nation.
Sure.
And
I fully agree.
something clicked with them. And Those first two games were buzzsaw, Texas, very close, but they pulled it out. And that might be the point for Ryan Day where things have finally changed for him because
Mhm.
we talked about it when we reviewed the game. Those were the games he lost all the time. So you can say both teams kind of have righted previous historical wrongs for how they've performed or how they've done on big stages. And now they're on a collision course for each other. So, um, just from my perspective, I know we were just talking about how kind of just talking about at different avenues about this game. That's the path both teams have taken here have been so unique,
Mhm.
and it's how the college football playoff should have played out.
Yeah,
You have the 7 versus 8 seed, but it feels like these are the teams that should be there,
I
like
agree.
almost like two teams of destiny colliding. So,
Yeah. And I
um,
think like when people talked about the 12 team football playoff, and I'm not going to discredit future 12 team playoffs or if we expand to 14 or 16, whatever we get. But I think when we envisioned these quote unquote Cinderellas making a title run, it wasn't necessarily, at least in my view, the Boise States, the SMUs. It was teams like Ohio State, Notre Dame. It was still going to be the blue bloods or the big brand of football who
yeah,
have enough talent around them that maybe stubbed their toe once or twice throughout the regular season and in the BCS era or the 14 college football playoff wouldn't have had a chance to make it in the 12 team, or if we expand further, they do. That kind of team that has the talent gets hot and makes a run. Like, I think this is exactly what we should have expected from the 12 team college football playoff is a team that has the talent in both of these teams being lower seeds, not having had an opportunity to likely make the 14 college football field, or certainly not the BCS football, back in the national championship when it was that era, just two teams. And I think this is what it was designed for. It's designed to get those smaller teams in too. But if they do make a Cinderella run, it's going to be one in many playoff runs, right? It's not going to be a frequent occurrence. I think
yeah.
this could be a potential frequent occurrence.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's also about what team's hot at the right time, and
Right.
both teams came in hot. Now, I had a thought here of a way we could kind of look at this game, and
Sure.
I'm thinking we could do a position by position kind of
Yeah.
comparison and who we would
Sure.
pick. And
Yeah.
I do have an endpoint to this, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll keep track. But I'd
Yeah.
say
If you
for
want to go and then you can give me yours, I'll give you mine. We'll see if we
sure,
match up. Sure.
sure. So I'll say who I'm picking and why, and just
Sure.
real fast on that. Um, Quarterback Riley Leonard versus Will Howard. Um, Personally, I think Leonard is the right fit for Notre Dame. I do think he's limited with his arm, and I think Will Howard, while more, I feel like I know it doesn't seem like it, but he feels a little more prone to mistakes. I know Leonard
Mm-hmm.
has probably more interceptions in the playoffs, but Howard takes more chances for sure.
Yeah.
But I Howard's accuracy, short and medium, is elite,
Mm-hmm.
and his ability to execute with pass rush and blitz is top level as well, and that goes
Yeah.
right into this. So I think Leonard's the better runner. I think he can make more plays with his legs, but I think ultimately Howard's the more well-rounded quarterback,
Yeah.
and that's who I'm going to pick in this head-to-head.
Yeah, I would take Howard as well for all of the reasons that you just mentioned. I think Leonard has more interceptions this year than Howard does. However, when it comes to Howard, Howard's interceptions and turnovers are just kind of been those head scratching, like oh moments where it's like big momentum change moments. Well, I don't necessarily know if that's true for Leonard. So I think that that's why a lot of people kind of hyper fixate on Howard's ability to turn the ball over in opportune moments. But, and you haven't seen it that much in this postseason. You did see it when the turf monster got him against Texas, but Howard also has the ability to be a good dual threat quarterback. Do I think
Yeah,
Riley Leonard's better with his legs? I absolutely do. But I absolutely think that Will Howard's passing ability surpasses that of Riley Leonard. And when you combo that, you could make the argument. You could say, hey, Howard has the ability to be a better passer than Leonard, in part due to the ridiculous weapons he has at Ohio State. That's a fair
yeah,
statement. I think that I would make that statement. But those things are both true. He has those weapons and he has shown an ability to be a more accurate thread the needle type passer. He's made some throws in this postseason and throughout the whole regular season that looked like Sunday throws you would see from an NFL-esque quarterback. I can't necessarily say I've seen the same, at least on a consistent basis, from Riley Leonard. So I'm with you. I would take Howard in this, not by a wide margin, but I
Yeah.
would lean slightly Howard.
Yeah. I just feel like it's more likely for Howard to make a big throw than it is Leonard, and it might come down to that. So,
Sure.
and then I think after this, like real quick, like wide receiver, I don't think we need to go into
Ohio
details.
State.
Like Ohio State, easily said and
Mm-hmm.
done. Offensive line, it's kind of funny too because Ohio State has had those devastating injuries on that line. The difference is that Notre Dame has had those more recently,
Mm-hmm.
and I think his name's like Jagasaw or something.
Yes. Yeah.
He's starting at left tackle. I think it's
Is,
going to be
is it Jagasaw? I think Jagasaw isn't he defense?
no,
I'm
he's
pretty
the
sure
left tackle.
he's left tackle. Is he? It's not his first ever collegiate start, is it?
No, I think I think they said it's his second,
Second.
and
Okay.
he was supposed to start this year, and he was lost for the year
That's
because of the
right.
pec injury, and he was able to
Yeah.
come back because the season is now so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say that's a bit of an unknown, and also
Sure.
who knows if he's 100%, and also. I can't recall the other guy's name. He's questionable, but I think he's going to play. But he's either their center or
Yeah.
guard. But
I think it's a guard, but I'm not 100%
yeah,
certain
I
on
mean,
that.
they're
But they're
banged
banged
up.
up. They're
They're
very
banged
banged
up,
up.
and Ohio State is banged up too. But the difference is they've had now 3 games where they've had
Mhm.
this team against high level opponents.
Yeah. And shockingly, this makeshift offensive line, which everyone was like, oh God, how is this going to play out against these elite
Yeah,
defensive lines that they're going against, has maybe been their best combo all year.
yeah, and I know Texas did a pretty good job against them, but Texas is a
Sure.
very talented defensive
Yeah.
line. And Colin Simmons, a true
Colin Simmons,
freshman,
ridiculous.
he's one of the best pass rushers in college football. So,
Mhm.
but overall, I think with that being said, I think you'd probably agree with me. I think Ohio State's probably the
Uh,
choice.
yeah, if I had to pick, I would pick Ohio State. If this is an option, I would truthfully call it like a draw
A
in my
push.
eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would literally call it a draw, a push. If I had to pick one, I would very, very slightly lean Ohio State. And that is because both lines have seen attrition. Ohio State has been together slightly longer than what Notre Dame is going to put together for this game.
Yeah, and I think partially why I'm
So,
saying that too is health continuity and the fact we'll go to this next, but defensive line.
mhm,
Um, Notre Dame has a taller task. So
sure.
obviously, so going to shifting to defensive line here, um, Ohio State's defensive line is loaded. I mean, JTT, Jack Sawyer,
Yeah.
Tyleik
Tyreek
Williams,
Williams has been amazing in run blocking.
yeah, Ty
Like
Hamilton, yeah,
and Hamilton as well.
yeah, yeah. Tyleik has been a game wrecker and on the
Mm-hmm.
inside, and of course the two guys on the edge have been absolute beast. I mean,
Yeah.
you see Sawyer's like fumble recovery, but he did so much more than that.
Yeah. Also,
Um,
I think let me correct my mistake. I said run blocking. I meant run defense. I think
yeah, yeah,
Williams has been
yeah,
incredible in
yeah,
run defense. You know what I meant, but
yeah.
just so I
So,
can.
and I personally like, I really do like Notre Dame's defensive line. Obviously, once again, unfortunately, injuries have played a game.
Mhm.
They're down a few guys. What's his name? Is it Riley or
Yes, I believe so.
he
I don't
he
have it pulled up in front of me, but
yeah, he's obviously he's a first round pick type talent in the middle who's
mhm.
out. They're not as physically imposing as what you saw with Texas. So with that being said, I mean Ohio State's D line has been together for years now. Multiple 5-star guys. Tyleik Williams has become a stud. I think they're easily the winners here. And I think partially when you look at Notre Dame, why they blitz so much is that they are compensating to an extent
Yeah.
for that lack of initial burst by that line. So
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I would go Ohio State's defensive line here. I think even if Notre Dame's defensive line was healthy, I would go with Ohio State's. And that's just truthfully because I think Ohio State's defensive line is one of the top two or three defensive lines in the entire country. And a lot of Ohio State fans, a lot of college football fans were constantly questioning Larry Johnson and this Ohio State defensive line being like, you have studs everywhere. You might not have a Bosa brother, you might not have a Chase Young on this defensive line, but you have 4 and 5 star guys up and down this line, and they were getting very minimal pressure over the last couple of years throughout the regular season. Not in this postseason. We touched on it in our last game after doing the Ohio State Texas recap. They have 16 sacks in this postseason.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they had 8 sacks alone in the Oregon game.
Oregon. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this defensive line has been on another level. And especially if they're going against an inexperienced or reshuffled Notre Dame offensive line, like I think this defensive line could absolutely eat on Monday night.
Yeah.
So I would go Ohio State's defensive line here. So I think we've been the same, I think, in every regard. You took Ohio State's offensive line. I would have taken a push, but if having to choose one, I was going to lean Ohio State's offensive line. This next one's interesting to me because I think it's running backs.
And I was going to say, I missed running back. Yeah.
I feel like you can make an argument for either because both teams have really a two deep at running back that is like a two-headed monster, like Jeremiah Love for Notre Dame. Obviously, he's the featured back. He's absolutely incredible. The guy's touchdown against Penn State, where he just scored based on sheer willpower and just strength, was absolutely incredible. Basically doing it on one knee. I don't know the injury that he has sustained that's got him in the brace, but to be able to do that just shows the guy's willpower and just strength in general. But then when you look at Ohio State, you have Henderson that has electric speed. I mean, that guy's got speed that, I mean, he looks like he should be out on the track field. Like he's incredible.
It's the top 1% in college football.
Yeah.
Like, he is
and then you
fast.
Right. And then you have Junkins, who's, I think, an incredible back as well. And the thing is, the reason I'm going to lean slightly towards Ohio State, and I want to see if you feel the same way, not just purely based on talent, because I think the world of Notre Dame's running back stable. Like, I think it's incredible. That's the featured part of their offense. It's because Ohio State had Henderson and Judkins throughout the regular season, and Ohio State ran a pretty methodical, slow-moving offense throughout the year.
Yeah.
Both of those guys did not take a significant amount of reps like other running backs in the country had to if they were the number one and they didn't really have a consistent number two option that they could rely upon. So Henderson and Judkins, like I think you've seen it in this postseason, like they are fresh in this postseason.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I would lean slightly towards Ohio State. I could almost make an argument that this is also a push. I'm just going to go purely based on the fact that I think Ohio State's running backs might just be a little bit more fresh. And that's why I would take them slightly over Notre Dame's.
I think those are fair points. And I want to go one further. I think Notre Dame has a trio of backs, to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair.
I know Love, you think of Love and Price, but Aeneas Williams, he's the like third down receiving back type guy.
Yeah.
And honestly, he might get a lot of at least opportunity after what we saw last week with the halfback wheel passes against Ohio
State. Great point. That's a great point.
They're going to be tested there, but I think it's very close to a push. I think Jeremiah Love has some sort of MCL issue. Obviously, he still looked good. It's not going to be healed 100% for this game. And Ohio State is a very physical defense. They're going to take some big hits, and this is one of the hardest hitting defenses I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and at least in recent years. So with that said, I think the freshness and health is a big deal. Jeremiah Love, he has about 35 or so more carries this year than Travion Henderson. Judkins actually has more carries than everyone, but this is a guy who had like 250, 300 carries at Ole Miss. Like he was just constantly, he was a bell cow back. So like Henderson and Judkins are used to being bell cow, and now they're not. So I agree with the freshness. Even in the game against Texas, like they didn't run it a whole lot. A lot of these carries came earlier. So I think the freshness and health of Ohio State gives them a slight edge. Otherwise, I would have been pushed. But with Love being banged up, I mean, he's still going to be very good, but he's not going to be 100%. So you need to be 100% in this matchup, and it's going to be Ohio State in that as well.
Yeah. We'll go quickly through these next position groups.
Sure. Yeah.
Special teams, Notre Dame for me. I think
Yeah.
probably is the same for you.
Yeah.
Um, I don't feel like we really need to touch too much on that. Safety is interesting to me.
Yep.
I'm a slight lean towards Ohio State because I think Caleb Downs is the best defensive player in all of college football. Like I think Ohio State has the best defensive player in college football and Caleb Downs and the best offensive player in college football in Jeremiah Smith. So I'd slightly lean Ohio State, but if you or somebody else out there who previewed this game and did a position by position group breakdown on who they'd favor
Yeah.
took Notre Dame, you would hear no argument from me. Like I think this is along with like the running backs and the offensive line, like those are the three closest groups to me that were the hardest to pick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would slightly lean Ohio State strictly based on the fact that I just think Caleb Downs is the best player if you went in Ohio State safety room and Notre Dame safety room, but it's not by some massive margin
Yeah,
here.
I
So
think Downs and Ransom are two elite guys. I do think Downs might be the most special defensive player out there, especially in the
yeah,
secondary. Xavier Watts
Ransom's
is,
been hitting, man.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Ransom's been shattering people.
so physical.
Yeah, so I think just having Ransom next to Downs gives them the edge. Obviously, Xavier Watts is incredible. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the guy is an X factor for that team. No slight to him at all. He if Downs is
No,
one
I
A, if
mean,
Downs is one A, he's one B.
yeah,
So
I agree with you. I
it
agree.
is neck and neck. But yeah, I give the slight edge as well.
Yeah. And then is it just DBs? Is that
Li-
who we,
Well, we could just say DBs and linebackers, and I think just in general the back half of the defense. Um, for me, Ohio State doesn't really have a glaring weakness. You can maybe say like Denzel Burke is susceptible to maybe being burned at one time a game.
yeah. And I would
Igbinosun
say
is
Igbinosun with holding.
he could hold. Um, Leonard Moore is has been a complete stud for
Mhm.
Notre Dame, and I just think
That's Jeremiah Smith's matchup, right? I would imagine
I mean if they
if they
truly
play man.
if they truly do go man, I
Yeah.
think that would be the matchup.
Mm.
So I still pick the back half of the defense. I just think it's Ohio State. I do think Notre Dame has some legit studs out there,
Yeah.
but they're not as not necessarily they're not that much far they're not that far off. But Ohio
No.
State's guys have been playing at a high level for a long time and they're super experienced. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of where I lean towards in these big games is guys who've played a lot, and that's Ohio State's guys.
Yeah. I would also go Ohio State, but not by any wide margin. Again, like I think some people who look at this game are like, man, I don't see how Notre Dame keeps this game within 20 plus. Like we just went position by position group. And yes, we favored Ohio State in a vast majority of
Yeah.
these position groups, but they were very close margins in both of our eyes. Like we both have the utmost respect for this Notre Dame football program, what Marcus Freeman has done, how they're playing. Like I would take Ohio State in the back end as well, but again, a very, very close pick for me. And you touched on it when you kind of started your initial conversation into the keys of this game and your kind of viewpoint of it. Notre Dame is the team in the nation with the longest active win streak after suffering that week two loss, like you talked about against Northern Illinois. And then
Yep.
Ohio State, I think you can easily make the argument that Ohio State is the hottest team in the nation in terms of how they've played since that Michigan loss. And exactly like Jack Sawyer penned in that letter, he's like, we could have taken route A, which is what everyone wanted us to take, which is we give up on the season, or we take route B and prove that we're the best team in the nation. And we chose route B. And I think that is showing and then some in these three playoff games for Ohio State so far. So I think this is going to be a really, really good game. I think one of the biggest question marks, and we kind of just touched on it, does Notre Dame truly play man against this absolute alien wide receiver room that Ohio State trots out on the field?
Yeah.
Because if they do, I think the world of Notre Dame's defenders. But if they do, uh, that's a tall order for anyone. I mean, even if even if you take away Smith, you still have to worry about Egbuka. Then you have Carnell Tate. You have Carnell Tate, who would be one of the best receivers in college football as the third option on this Ohio State football team. Like that's absolutely insane to me.
Yep.
And so I'll be really interested to see because the one thing about Notre Dame we've touched on in the past in these recap games against Penn State and the Orange Bowl, like they're a team that just does not give up. They do not stop fighting. They are going to give you 110% the entire game. The one thing I would worry about if I'm Notre Dame is if you do fall down early to Ohio State, it is different than falling down early to Penn State with the way that this Ohio State defense is playing and the way that this Ohio State offense has been shown that they're capable of playing throughout this 3 game postseason so far. Because you might find yourself in a situation where they get themselves an avalanche and you look up it's 17-0. And Notre
Yeah.
Dame's offense, while it can be efficient, is not a quick striking offense. It is not an offense that is built to come back from any kind of significant margin.
Yeah.
Like they are built to be methodical. They are built to run the football. They are built to play solid defense. If they find themselves down 2+ scores against a team as talented as Ohio State, I think it could be a much different result than what you saw against Penn State. So that's interesting to me. I'm really excited to see, does Penn State or does Notre Dame, excuse me, truly play man coverage? How does Ohio State come into this game? Like, do they play into their strengths? Because I touched on it in the recap of Ohio State, Texas. I said they needed a game just like that. Because
Yeah.
if Ohio State came into this game, blew the doors off Tennessee with the passing, blew the doors off Oregon with the passing, opened up the run game, blew the doors off Texas with the passing, opened up the run game a little bit, and then came into this game and got into their first rock fight and drag into the mud game since that Michigan game, it could have potentially spelled disaster for Ohio State. So I think for me, them having had to go through that kind of style of game, that exact almost Michigan blueprint, excuse me, with this Texas team in the Sugar Bowl a little over a week ago at this point, was really good for this team because they showed, hey, we can win this style of game. If they want to drag us into this game, we'd prefer not to play this way. We'd prefer to just let our Ferraris hum on the outside. But if need be, we can win this way. And so I think that was really important for them. And so with that and everything we talked about, favoring Ohio State in the position groups, most of them, just this absolute tear that Ohio State's been on. And I think Ohio State's not reading their press clippings. Like I've seen from the interviews for Ryan Day, the players, they're all laser focused from what I can tell from what they're saying in their press conferences, where they're like, yeah, we've done our job up to this point. But if we don't win on Monday,
Doesn't mean a thing.
doesn't mean a thing. So
Yep.
that laser focus to me really secures my pick of Ohio State in this game. I think Ohio State's just playing on another level right now. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think Notre Dame's going to keep it close. But I just think Ohio State has found its rhythm. They have found that they can win in a multitude of ways. That defense is playing absolutely incredibly. And I think that we would probably both agree from an offensive perspective, this is probably the worst team offensively that they will have faced in this postseason.
Yeah.
At least what they can present in terms of a multifaceted offense.
Or on par with like Tennessee, probably, or
Sure,
something along the lines of that. But yes, I agree.
sure.
And
Like running the football, great. Riley Leonard is amazing. Jeremiah Love is amazing. Price, like you mentioned, Williams, like you talked about, like they've got the ability to run the football really, really well, but they're not a multifaceted offense, at least on a broad scale. And
yeah,
so I don't know. I think Ohio State probably gets 24 points in this game minimum. To me, I think that they can get 24 points. I don't know if Notre Dame can get 20. I don't on this
yeah,
Ohio State defense. I don't see it. So I think it'll be a close game, like a 24-17, 26-20, something like that. Maybe they get to 20 points, but outside of that, I just don't see them scoring in
yeah,
bunches.
yeah. So I think I know we don't have a whole lot of time here, but I think there's a very narrow avenue for Notre Dame to win this game,
Mm-hmm.
and the biggest thing is one, Ohio State needs to have self-inflicted mistakes. So
Sure.
they need multiple turnovers, multiple.
Excuse me.
Um, they need to have poor special teams. And I think that just opens it up. And then also, they cannot have broken defensive plays where they give Notre Dame easy scores.
Mhm.
As long as they keep them in front of them, no one's run on Ohio State at all. And yes, Riley Leonard's the first like run first type of quarterback they've faced. But I mean, if Ohio State can hone in and stop the run and force Notre Dame to throw, I mean, Ohio State secondary doesn't have to be perfect. That's a winning formula.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. But the self-inflicted mistakes for Ohio State is a good point because we saw not a lot of them against Tennessee or Oregon, but a lot of them against Texas. 9 penalties for 75 yards. So,
yeah. So I personally think Ohio State's going to win this game. Uh, the biggest difference is going to be the Ohio State offense, and
mhm,
they don't have the same limitations the Notre Dame offense does. And with those receivers and that run game, I mean, Notre Dame has beat good opponents. They have not had to face a complete team like Ohio State.
mhm,
Nobody has three first round picks at receiver besides Ohio State.
right.
Um, that's something that you can't prepare for. Like you said, if they truly do go man to man for most of the game,
Mhm.
good luck because
Yeah, it could be a long night.
I know Leonard Moore's has been elite. He's a true freshman. These None of these guys down at Notre Dame have faced receivers at this caliber. You think at
Yeah.
Penn State, no receivers. Georgia, they were down their starting quarterback, but not the biggest knock on Georgia all year was they don't have receivers.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
think you talked about it. Moore is a true freshman. Jeremiah Smith's a true freshman. The difference
yeah,
is Moore is an incredible college true freshman. Jeremiah Smith is an NFL player in a college football uniform.
So
Like,
I
it's just
personally think,
true.
like I said, I think Notre Dame has a chance, but it's a very narrow window. They have
Hmm.
to play perfect or near perfect, and Ohio State has to make mistakes.
Hmm.
And not only on the field, if Chip Kelly and Ryan Day get in their heads and they just go back to what they did against Michigan or
Hmm.
whatever. They if they get in the way, anything can happen. But honestly, I think Ohio State's going to win.
Hmm.
I think offensively, it's going to be too much. This defense has been so solid for so long that I just think it's going to be too much. So
Yeah.
I think I want to say it's going to be a close game, and because these games tend to work out that way.
Hmm.
But I'm going to pick Ohio State to win 27-17.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be a 10-point win.
Yeah, we're not
Um,
far off in our point
and
spread.
I think Notre Dame's going to make things interesting, but I think it's just going to be the offensive capabilities is going to come through at the end, and Ohio
Hmm.
State's defense just is not going to give an inch. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No, I think,
I think it'll be a game of attrition, and I think
yeah.
you'll see that as the game goes on.
Yeah. No, I think all of those were great points. This was a great, I think breakdown and discussion of this game. I think that, we hit on a lot of the points that we wanted to hit on here. So everybody, that tunes into this video or any of our videos, again, we always really appreciate you guys. If you could drop a like, subscribe, it really helps the channel. We love to do this for you guys. Let's go out and enjoy, the last college football game of the 2024 season, this national championship game. Let's all take it in, whether our team's playing or not. This is a special sport we love. So let's enjoy it. And then we'll see you guys after the game for the recap.
Yes, sir.